Welcome to TradeTheNBA.com. This is John. This reports for the 26th of April. We start the new week. Well, going back to Friday, we were just below the ABM yellow on Thursday, which was right around 41.35. Bringing the screen right there, down at the bottom of the do fast. And once we got above it, it was off to the races. Now, this reflected in the fact that we've been in this bullish run where we have blue above the green here on the MBI readings and red spiking back up above at the same time magenta. That was just enough impetus to push it. Where I find it's interesting is really in the white line, because when it gets above the 13, that's when you have the potential for much more significant movement, because when it's above that 10 level and you're developing those sell signals, that's when you're going to get much more of a movement. So this is kind of the phase we're in at this particular stage, where you get crosses back and forth, but with that sub 10 white line, usually you hold on fairly decent. It's when it gets above it and you start getting those breaks that you're going to get more exacerbated moves. So will that continue to move into there? I will see, but for now I'm still holding on to a bullish stance within this, and a little bit more. Usually you get like to the 80 level, you're going to break into the 4,200 range. That'll be an interesting test when it gets to there and how the reading's looking. Here you can see from a NASDAQ standpoint, I would expect that any dips of the magenta in this particular case are going to produce much broader declines, because you already have that white over 10, and you also have the blue below the green, which that inversion of the relationship of the algos indicates that the NASDAQ is far weaker than the S&P at this particular stage. From a gold standpoint, still holding on to its gains as well, but likewise, even though it's got this modest decline here, you're in that sub 10 category here, so any lift is going to be a significant move to the upside. And the euro, of course, continuing its juggernaut, as it's expected that the U.S. is just going to print until they run out of paper. So just look for paper shortages, and that will be the indication. But actually, of course, I'm joking. Most of that is all electronic money, and that stimulus, as long as it doesn't make it into real assets as far as inflation goes. But we're already seeing some effects of that, where you have labor shortages and things like this are going to really, that will be the driver of inflation, and that's where typically look, and we'll start to see that reflected in real prices, gasoline, things like that. So it becomes significant. From an intraday, started off kind of interesting. We had a lot of movement in between. We had some adjustments to this, the PNT2A here, which is what we're looking at. There was a conflict in my language on the cyan below red, which on the DOC here, we always talk about that as being always a buy. And after we had some consolidation and then some dips, if you look at these orange dots, what they represent is closes below the 23% where you're underneath, and working that language, because oftentimes what we get is you get a failed buy attempt when you have that kind of setup, particularly when there's no steel reset. And by steel reset, I mean the dip at least down to the 0 point and then move back up where you have your orange dip. So in this particular case, above 13, you're going to get a little bit when the steel is above 13.5, but as soon as it dips back below, usually you get that little bit of a fade. And then secondarily, it happened here, but this time you're getting shakeout where you're finally getting above that negative 13.5. And when you get above that negative 13.5 is when you usually can carry through and get some momentum to that trade. That was Thursday's action. And then when we started in on Friday, we had built up and kind of came through pretty flat with it. We had a couple of little soft areas, and then later on, mid-morning, well, when I say mid-morning, I mean from European time, but this was before the market opened. The pre-market started, gave that buy configuration from there, and then it was just this. Boom. Now, in the earlier version that we had a couple of magenta readings that were coming through, and a lot of them were taking place, though we were still cyan under red, which once I was able to locate the language adjustment that changed part of that, and it was just a simple line. Got it back to what our normal configuration is within there. And then right at the end of the day, we hit the DSC spread, which matched pretty well with in that setup, and then that was right back to the old algo up at the 4178 range, and that led to pretty reasonable discount going through there. I mean, we covered extremes going all the way back to this last pop-up there. That still leaves plenty of others to fill back in on weakness, so it's just a matter of waiting for those adjustments, but it's played out pretty clear. I mean, even maybe adjustments to the NQ, just a 5 key from the NASDAQ as well. You can see it just turning pretty right there where it had popped with the buy configuration and this nice turn up, and this is what we look for those solid configurations. The problem is when you get up to this level, as soon as that rolls over, there's going to be some more weakness associated with that, and the depth of that pullback will be an interesting one. And that's most likely going to be seen when you get the cyan below the greens that fall below the cyan pop-up. So when that takes place, we'll probably get the next leg down. And that's what I kind of look for when I'm seeing these kind of bullish upturns. This can roll over and still stay bullish, but I look for that yellow dipping below the green. If that happens, then usually you get a little bit more of a follow through to the downside. So just some of the little inside characteristics, but overall the market strength that exists within there when they get the ball rolling, shorts just pretty much cease and desist and wait for their opportunity and then jump into the fray. As always, though, I will update you on the Skype chat and any new adjustments to the program. I will certainly send them out. As always, though, trade well. We'll talk to you later.